it is great to have some time with you both. We started working way back in the fall of 2001 together. Dick, do you remember that? Do you remember how it all began?
Dimly, yeah. I had been working for a couple of decades on inequality issues, and then it seemed like rather than simply do research, I should try and actually do something. So I asked Tom Pezant, the superintendent in Boston, if I could work for him for a year, and then what to work on. He suggested asking the department heads, and the department heads indicated they wanted help with developing tools for school faculties to learn from student assessment results and learn how to improve instruction, and to do that to help all kids. So that's what we got started on. And once we had the tools, then we had to have some training for teachers. So I worked to develop a class, and I was so blessed that you and Liz decided to take that class along with faculty of 10 schools. And I learned very quickly that you both knew much more about this topic than I did.
Which is to say, not that much. Like, part of what drew me to the work was I was just coming from being a teacher and principal in North Carolina, and then I'd been a coach in Boston Public Schools. And in North Carolina, we had all this test data, and I felt like we should do something with this. And I sat down with the spreadsheet, and then nothing happened as a result of that. And then I was a coach, and I was supposed to be helping schools do something with all their data. And it was all just very intuitive. And I kind of bought your premise that we have all the data, we should try to do something with it. So I was hoping to have answers, to get answers, not bring the answers to you.
Well, we worked on that, and then because I had a foundation fund my time, I had to produce something. So I worked on getting a seminar going. It did not work well at all. So then I approached Kathy and said, would you and Liz take this over? And from there, everything got better.
Yeah, we embraced it. I remember having a conversation at one point and saying, all right, let's think about how this could be the kind of meeting that nobody ever wants to miss. Make it so compelling, such a good use of time, such a kind of uplifting experience that people would keep coming, and they did.
The coolest part about it, I think, when we moved from the course of Boston educators and Harvard Graduate School of Education students meeting together to then we need to produce something, which was still Harvard graduate student educator or practitioners who are now doctoral students, as well as actual practitioners still in practice from Boston, as well as all these research faculty. I think the mix was when we spent that year kind of trying to learn from everyone's expertise, and the starting point was everybody in the room had expertise. They just had different expertise to share. And then I think the big question was, how do you move from these different kinds of expertise to something that's actually useful?
And I thought, the meetings were great. And then I so enjoyed the summer where the three of us rewrote the whole book. I saw much more of the two of you than I did of my wife that summer.
Well, I think we had 19 people writing that book, I think, and to get their different voices in there, but then have it read in a way that was actually useful for an educator to sit down with and use, So I think we kind of figured out how to honor the voices of the people in our group, as well as sort of have a one voice feel to it. But then Kathy, really under Kathy's leadership, kind of the whole thing started taking off. So Kathy, what tell us a little bit about what drew you to stay with it from that initial kind of coming to it and writing a book to then it becoming the main thing and you really taking leadership of it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, what drew me to it was very much, Dick, you'd been my thesis advisor, and we'd worked on a lot of research that sort of was about second chance strategies for women who dropped out of high school, looking at the GED and that sort of thing. And I felt such a distance to the data that we were looking at. Like I hadn't met any of the people that we were studying. I felt like I knew I wanted to be in a place where I was working toward sort of a more equitable society. I knew that you cared so much about the skills gap, the earnings gap. But it wasn't until this project that the three of us did that I felt like there was something that, like, me personally could contribute. And I think part of it was just sort of as like a white woman who grew up with a lot of privileges, I just wasn't sure what's my role in the situation. I knew the world was unfair. I knew that from being a little kid, but I didn't know how to contribute. And this project helped me realize that, hey, there's this little job that I like to do, a little niche, which is helping to kind of elevate the stories of practitioners that are doing great work in a way that other people can learn from them. And I saw that practitioners are kind of too busy to do that work. Really traditional researchers are focused on something that's a little bit more for, a particular kind of journal. But that little piece, I was like, I can do that. And I think it's needed. And it just felt really good to find that stride.
That's great. And Liz, you were along the way working to develop the EDLD program. I'd love to know how that connects to this.
Yeah, I mean, I think like so many different things. Like I came to the ed school as a doctoral student because I had, done, I thought, good work around the equity and access you're talking about, Kathy, with a small group of students. And I want to do it at scale. I want to do it for lots of people. And so I think that's what drew me to the ed school in the first place. And so I wasn't planning to stay at the ed school after I graduated. I was planning to go out and see if anybody would hire me as a superintendent of a school system. But then when I was asked to stay and help start the EDLD program, I thought, well, okay, I'll stay for a couple years. And this is consistent with my goals about scale, because EDLD is all about transform US education so that demography is not destiny, as our colleague Deborah Jewel Sherman says. So for me, all of these things are kind of connected in the sense that I feel like Datawise is really about how do you help people have a practice of improvement that they can collaboratively solve a problem they care about and make progress on learning. And then the EDLD program is about how do you prepare leaders, especially leaders who we don't see in traditional leadership roles in education. So women, people of color, how do we prepare all of our leaders so that they know how to disrupt these systems of inequity and really make learning happen? So for me, the connection with Datawise was, okay, so some of those EDLDers actually became some of the people who really helped launch Datawise from a really small scale thing into a big scale thing. And so there was this for me, it was kind of like, I did this, and then I did this. And then it's looking back at it, it's like, oh, wait, there's all this connective tissue and through lines.
Yeah, because I feel like if, it was exciting when we sort of put the book out there, and then a year or two later, we started doing our professional education annual institute. We were hearing from people in the field that, this resonates. These 8 steps of how you would improve teaching and learning from as a teacher team, they make sense. But we didn't really have the bandwidth to build out the materials anymore. Dick's grant that got the book written had been used up, and it's like we needed sort of some new energy around that. And that energy walked in my office door in the form of 2 members of the first of your EDLD cohort, David Reese Jr. and Michelle Shannon, and they sat down at my table and said, this Datawise thing, if I had had this in my previous role, I could have made so much more progress. And they're like, can we be part of bringing this to more people? And that's really the Datawise ethic, as I said, because I think of my role as being the one that forms these connections. And so I was able to kind of create space for Michelle and David, and then people pretty much every EDLD year ever since, and we're now up to 11 or 12 cohorts, to tap the people who have energy around this, know what's needed in the field, and know how to bring help us create the materials that people can use. So thank you for having that program, because I think without it, we wouldn't have been able to get so far.
Well, what I'd like to know, since we haven't had a chance to talk for a while, and when I think back, and I'm so proud of what Datawise has become and your role in leading it. What are you most proud of? Because you've worked on it now almost 20 years.
Yikes, that's crazy. Gosh, well, I mean, on the sort of numbers side, I could say, well, it's really cool that we have over 120,000 people have registered for our Maps of Open online course, our Introduction to Datawise, and it's just really amazing to look at the map in that website and see that people in every corner of the globe can freely access these ideas that we put together a while ago. I'm excited that we've had over 4,000 people do a much more intense professional learning thing, whether that's here in on campus, if possible virtual. We've been to Australia twice with the Institute, and then I'm excited that we've got over 100 coaches on 4 continents that are taking the Datawise ideas, the ethic, the thing that the sort of special sauce that I feel like the 3 of us saw evolve in that initial group of being curious and being action oriented and really caring about how you work together. We've got over 100 coaches who are trying to bring that to other people. But I feel like those numbers don't really tell the story in the way that like specific examples do. Like there's a principal in Delaware who was brand new to the job, came to our institute, and this was back when we were all delivering this together, came to the institute and was like, this is what I need to be able to be a strong leader in my setting. And she brought the process to the school, was able to really develop some teacher leaders. Eventually she was offered a system level position. And I just heard this year that she's now deputy superintendent in her district, and she feels like she's got the tools to lead a district. I was like, that makes me feel proud. There's educators in Maryland who have sort of gone through a leadership change, and some of the very basic ideas that we brought in terms of our ACE habits of mind. So like, that shared commitment to action, assessment, and adjustment, our intentional collaboration, or our relentless focus on evidence. Those things, even if Datawise per se is not happening, they've become how people work. And I guess that just really makes me feel happy to think that this has some staying power.
That's neat. Another kind of offshoot from this was your and Liz's book, Meetingwise, that I have bought multiple copies of and given to colleagues, particularly those who really needed it.
Meetingwise is funny because, I feel like there's all these connective pieces to Datawise. Meetingwise really came out of, Kathy and I just said, what do we spend so much of our time doing when people say they want help using data? Most of the time they want help collaborating. And we thought, can we just help people collaborate, even if it's not specifically about data? And so, so that's fun. I mean, it's fun for me when I'm out in the field working with people. So many people talk to me about Datawise. And now what's really fun is they don't necessarily talk to me about Meetingwise. They just show me an agenda that looks like an agenda, like our agenda, And so it's actually also really fun to see our work, like not with attribution, not with our name, just like you're having productive time together, focused on learning, just makes me really happy. And that's happening a lot more.
Places, so many teachers groups have negotiated for common planning time. And as we all know, a lot of that hasn't been used well. I would love to think that Meetingwise has increased the number of teacher meetings that really are productive.
Yeah, and I think they're productive, but you hear that people, they say they're kind of more fun too, which in a way, like that would seem like it's a contradiction, but it's exhausting to be bored through a meeting or to be there an extra half hour that nobody agreed to. And when people feel like they have clear objectives and they're all going to work toward it, and they're going to know if they were successful, and then they're going to talk about why they weren't if they weren't. I think they just have more fun. I mean, that's what our meetings have always been like, right, guys? Like, I think we've spent a lot of time laughing together when we're trying to make good things happen.
Well, and the way you organize the meetings in the year that we actually produced the book after a year of not making much progress, where they started on time, you had an agenda for every 5 minutes in that hour or hour and a half, whatever it was, and we ended on time. And I think people felt their time was valued.
And that makes such a big difference. When people feel their time is valued, they'll give you more of themselves, right? Like they'll bring more of themselves, they'll give you more of themselves. Yeah, I was just thinking as you were both talking, yeah, that is how our time together is. So it's fun to be able to help other people with that. All right, I have one more question for us to discuss before we wrap up, even though we could talk for hours. I'm not sure everybody would want to listen to us for hours. So just building on that and thinking about our collaboration, I think it'd be fun to just talk a little about what we've learned from each other, because I think one of the other ripples of Datawise, at least for me, is how kind of what I've learned from working with you two has rippled into the rest of my life. And so I'm going to give you a chance to think about that question while I tell you, well, you have to listen to me, what I appreciate about what I've learned from you. So one, that Kathy, Dick was just talking about this, like this structure. Kathy's a lot more structured than I am. I'm the flex, she's the structure, you know? So Kathy, like, but it's a structure that creates, as Dick was just talking about, possibility for people, right? It creates a safety and a way for people to know my time is valued. How is it going to be used? How do I get my voice in here? And then your structure always has love in it. So you like this sort of intangible piece about like bringing that fun spirit, but also just the love and respect. So I think I've just taken, you can have structure and love all together. And like, I think I just take that into the rest of my life. And then from Dick, I think the big thing for me, I'm a new doctoral student at Harvard. I'm with this person who's won all these awards, tenured Harvard faculty member. And what was so striking to me, Dick, working with you is you really did treat me like I knew more than you. And I was like, what are you talking about? But you have such humility about the work and showed me that the power is in not knowing and admitting that. And then that creates a space for learning. And I thought, well, if you can do that, then I should be able to do that. So I started just being much more willing to say when I didn't know things, which I had kind of hidden before. And then what does that create, both as a learner, but also in all my roles since then as a leader? Like if a leader is willing to say, I don't know something and I'm learning, it just opens up a whole new space. So I just wanted to thank you both for that. Okay,
That's
over to you.
I've learned so much from the two of you, but the one thing that I probably was most surprised at learning are the value of protocols. You know, nobody in economics graduate school, that word was never heard. And this idea that structured ways of organizing meetings, seminars, teaching and learning could really increase the value and the fun was an extraordinary lesson for me. So I think of you, Liz, as the protocol queen.
I would say the thing that just leapt to mind, and this is so classic Liz, like gives us a total extemporaneous thing to mull over. I discovered in working with you guys that there's kind of nothing better than working really hard with people you really love on something that's really important. And I liked that whenever we were together, it seemed like the task at hand was worthy of all of your attention. You didn't act like, well, you know, this is just what we're doing for our job and there's other things that matter more. Like you just kind of go all in. And I feel like that kind of gave me permission to be like, all right, it's okay to kind of revel in being a hard worker, especially because by doing it, I feel like we had an awful lot of fun together. So thanks for being such awesome colleagues.
Oh, you guys have been fabulous. It's been such a joy to work with you.
You know, it's so fun to get to talk about that. Love you.